Good morning, Michael. So, like 6 years ago, when I first started my law firm, we went out to a lunch, and I remember you telling me
Did I
pretty
pay or
early
you
on.
pay?
Was that?
Did I pay or you pay?
Well, you definitely at least paid with wisdom. You may have also paid. I'm pretty sure you paid for the lunch as well.
Oh,
But one of the first things you told me, and you've kind of repeated over the years, is that the amount of value you see in hiring somebody to return your phone calls same day. And I remember that was your big sticking point, same day, same day. And there's a lot of people that are entrepreneurs that are starting out their businesses and they're trying to find enough time to do everything. And then they're wearing many hats. And when I brought all those excuses up to you, you said, instead of understanding that position for me, you said even more reason for you to hire someone. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I wanted to kind of use this moment to get your take on that. And what do you have to say about that?
yeah. It's a good topic, in my opinion, for our attorney friends or for people in general, but we're talking right now about attorneys. So the conversation, as I
Or anybody,
recall it,
or any
yeah,
entrepreneur, I guess.
yeah, but we're speaking about attorneys. The conversation years ago began in the following way. I said, I own a PR firm. I've represented many, 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 many attorneys, high profile attorneys, law firms, big, medium, small, and a pattern emerged, which is this: all super successful attorneys. I'm not talking about the mid tier. I'm talking about the 1% or above. All of them had one thing in common that I could discern. They had a fabulous, not good, not really good, a fabulous assistant who, I'm told by many or some, were very well paid, higher than the market. So that was the topic that started our conversation years ago. That if the goal is to get to that 1% or above, I did not see a path in evidence based observation that allowed that without a terrific assistant. And I also made the point, if you happen to recall, that something also interesting occurred. If I called a top 1% attorney, which is very rare, if I called him or her, I would receive a rapid response call back in 4 hours or less from the assistant virtually all the time. 4 hours or less. Hey, Michael, it's Sally, it's Nancy, it's Sarah. How can I help? I see you called. How can I help? And this person that I was speaking to, the assistant, was not a C student at a community college. A smart, likable, warm, gracious, hospitable voice. If the assistant didn't know the answer, they'd say, great, I'll get back to you, and would. This is the top 1%. Now, if I called a top 20% attorney, same time, I would hear back from them in a day or two, with an assistant or the attorney. If I called a top 50% attorney, I would either not hear back or hear back by email. Now, you're saying, wow, that's kind of wacky, interesting. I'm talking like I'm speaking through the voice of Malcolm Gladwell. This is what the data stated. You like it, you don't like it, you want to call me an idiot, you want to call you an idiot. I don't get it. It doesn't matter to me. Hell, you and I've had this little talk in our long. In the end, men lie and women lie, but accurate data never lies and always tells a story. And that's the story. So, top 1%, rapid response 4 hours or less, top 20%, a day or two, top 50%, no return at all, or email. And as the quadrant reduced, the 50% would almost always have a conversational tone to them, which sounded like this. Now, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit for purposes of, entertainment or learning, whatever. But, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I've been so busy. I've been so jammed. I'm going. I'm jammed. I'm busy. You can't understand. You have no idea how busy I am. Busy. That's the top 50%. They sounded like their hair was on fire.
Mhm.
The top 1%, not so much. They sounded like they were present, listening. Not always, not 100%. I don't want to over romanticize it, but I'm telling you, there was this pattern. So, therefore, since I love you and respect you and have watched you, true or false, I have watched you since law school days, true or false?
False. You've seen me
Before,
since college days. Yeah. That's
before law
right.
school, right?
That's right.
Before law school.
Yeah.
I've watched you. You are one impressive son of a bitch. You're the real deal in lots of ways, not just as an attorney. You are that as an attorney, but as a human, you're a special guy. And I was smart enough or lucky enough to figure that out 25. And so that's what I was trying to impress upon you 6 years ago. You do what the hell you want. Your friends can do what the hell they want. But this is what I observed. Now, then I also watched another pattern in the top 20% or 50%, which is they started a journey, I guess, of lying to themselves. And here was the lie. Michael, I have a good assistant. Her name is Siri. They came to believe, and I don't know if they were lying to me as much as they were lying to themselves. They came to believe that Siri and email and whatever other dopey solutions they were creating, which is keeping the bottom 50%. Come on, man. Siri's not your fucking assistant. What is wrong with you? So, anyway, those are some notes. Now, I understand that in modern life and among young entrepreneurs or young attorneys, this will be regarded by many as Neanderthal talk, retrogressive. You don't get it. Look me up on Instagram. These are the same people that don't carry business cards. They've got a brilliant plan for the future.
Right.
Whatever.
So, one of the things I've noticed about you is you have a major reverence for time, and I think this
I
feeds into
do.
it. Let me push back on a couple things and see what
Sure.
your response are
And
on
by the
them.
way, I just want to clarify because I know you know this, but I want to clarify it for anyone watching. Major reverence for time. English translation. I despise, loathe, and hate wasting time. Translation in English. 14 emails to set up a lunch or a coffee over a 6-day period. Okay, continue. Sorry.
So, what if
Push
people say,
back
well,
all you want.
what if people say, it's a chicken and egg thing, and that's what I want to talk
Yep.
to you about, which is, hey, Michael, of course the 1% have an assistant that is going to take
They
their
can
calls.
afford it.
I'm not the 1%. Now, I have a feeling your response might be something like, one of the reasons they are the 1% is because they had an assistant,
And
and I
by
kind
the
of want
way,
to,
Engel, I'd further say, and I'm not one of the 1%. I know they have one. They have assisted. They can afford it. I'm going to say, darling, do you want to be one of the 1%, or do you not want to be one of the 1%? Well, I want to be one of the 1%. Great. What are you willing to give up to get it, darling? Come on, man. Come on. Think. I didn't say it was easy. I didn't say it was fair. Okay, go ahead.
and let's say someone is on that journey to get that assistant,
Yep.
and you have this A player assistant that you can't afford, but you have a B player that you can afford for now until you can reach that A player. Would you
Yep.
say it's better to have that B player? They
Yes.
might have an accent. They might be in the Philippines. It may not be the ideal situation. Yeah.
A B player, I have never in my life ever, by the way, on an average day, just to show you how unusual or odd or bizarre I am, an average Monday through Friday, I take and make, on average, 75 to 125 calls a day, which of course is more calls than most people make or take in a year. I get it. Okay. So now you'll say, and I have never, ever, that's 6 evers, once met a B assistant in the Philippines. They are C minus the best I've ever seen. That's the best. Now, you want to con yourself into believing that a C minus assistant in the Philippines is really a B. because you want to believe that, have at it. I think you're delusional. Now, you want to get a part-time assistant until you can afford a full-time assistant? Go for it. You want to get a B assistant better than it until you can get an A? Go for it. But have a plan to get an A if you want to be in the top 1%.
Okay, and can you tell me what defines a B assistant, what defines an A assistant?
Well, one thing I've mentioned to you, dear brother, is rapid response, quality, graciousness. They never sounded like the good ones never sounded like this. Hello, Mr. Levine. How can I help? They never sounded like that. They always sounded like, "Hi, Michael. It's Sally. How can I help you? How was your weekend? How can I help? I see you called. How can I be of service?" They were gracious. I felt when I was talking to them like I was at the Four Seasons Hotel, not at Costco in a bad neighborhood. So I don't know if that's helpful, is it?
Yeah, and I would assume
Fast, rapid. They kept their word. Hey, Michael, I'll call you back later today and get you an answer. If they didn't have an answer, they'd call me back anyway or email me.
so let's pretend I'm Michael's new assistant. You've
Let's
replaced the
pretend.
old one, okay? And today is day 1 of work and I know nothing. I mean, you've interviewed
Sure.
me and all that, but
Yeah,
today's
yeah.
day 1.
Yep.
Set me straight. Tell me what I'm doing for you. Tell me, set your expectations for me.
Sure. Well, I think what we should do on our initial journey is spend a week observing tasks that are low leverage for me in our desired outcome. Low leverage means time wasting. If I am making a reservation at the Polo Lounge for lunch with you, that's a low leverage exercise, right? Now, let's say I want to have lunch at the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel with you, and I want to sit outside because I want to be in an uncrowded area so we can talk quiet. If I'm making that reservation, that's a low leverage exercise. That's something my assistant should be doing. Presumably, my assistant over time will know the name first and last of the maitre d' and the manager at the Beverly Hills Hotel, so that when doofus number 1 picks up the phone and says, "I don't have any seating outside," the assistant can say, "Can I talk to the manager?" So the low leverage, because we want to keep Michael or the partner really, really, really hyper focused on high leverage activities,
Right.
signing clients, helping clients, being of service. That's,
And they're an extension of you, so it's a representation of you when
yes,
someone gets called back.
yes.
So what are you telling them in terms of how they communicate, how they're talking, things like that? Because it can make you look bad. You could be as good as you
Well,
want, but if your assistant isn't, I'm just trying to
well,
get a little bit of more in terms of like,
treat
yeah,
treat people, what's the old, the golden rule taught at age 6 or 5, right? Treat people as you would want to be treated if you were in their circumstance. Courteous, gracious, kind, thoughtful, anticipate problems, listen intensely, try to anticipate an issue. In America, it seems to my mind that we have kind of 2 types of people. People who we have maybe 3 types of people who don't do what they're asked to do. Those are called the underachievers. We'll use nice language, the underachievers. They usually work with a uniform and a name tag, generally. Now, all work has dignity, but let's just say they're not the A group, okay?
right,
You go in, you see them all the time. Go to the Verizon store, go to Costco, go to, where you see them all the time. There's people, you ask them to do something, they don't do it. And when you ask them why they didn't do it, they come up with an excuse, usually involving something else, never their fault. Sometimes, very often with young people, I've noticed, filled with giggling. Sorry, I've been busy. I forgot. So that's one group. The second group, you give them something to do and they do it. They don't do it particularly well, they do it.
right.
And so you tell them, deliver this package at 10 o'clock in the morning. So they show up at 10 minutes after 10. They're late, usually blaming traffic. They go to the front door. They knock on the front door. No one's home. They get back in the car and they go home. That's the second. The
Got it.
third group shows up at 9:45. They knock on the front door, no one's home. They go to the back door, knock on that, no one's home. Side door, chimney. They walk down the street, they see the FedEx guy. They ask a question. They do more, be more, think more. Front door, back door, side door, chimney. Always polite, always,
Right.
and those people
Yeah.
in America earn more than the second group and the third group. So
Mhm.
you basically are deciding which payroll you want to be on in America, right? You're saying,
Right.
okay, we have jobs in America for everyone, so I'm going to sign up. Now, the jobs in quadrant one, where uniform and name tag, the advantage, though you make less money, the advantages are you get to watch 3 football games on Sunday. Not bad, okay? Made for some, right? For some. The second group makes more money than the first group. They have a little bit more stress, but not horrible. And the third group makes significantly more money than the first two, and they have a lot more stress. You basically, in America, you get to decide your pay grade, what
Right.
you want, what you're willing to give up to get it. So there you go.
And I know one of the quotes you like, I believe is from General Powell, is extreme optimism is a force multiplier. Would you say having
Excellent.
an assistant, a good assistant, is also a force multiplier?
Massive if it's the right assistant, assuming it's the right assistant. By the way, the top group, the top 1%, the attorneys in the top 1%. Question for the group, for you and for the group watching or listening. Top 1%. Very, very, I mean, I'm talking about these are household names that you know, okay? If I mention the names, these are household names that so top 1%. Did the top 1% more often, less often, or no difference send more thank you notes than the bottom?
Mm,
I don't know, maybe more? They did. Now, how could busy people flying often on private planes, how do they find the time? The birthday reminder that's why they're there.
right. And on the back end, Michael, now we've talked about on the front end, your assistant calling people back and talking to them, right? But there's a back end to this, which is you and the assistant communicating. And do you batch those, or do you have every single time there's a call, your assistant's running into your
No,
office and calling
sometimes
you?
you have
Yeah.
look, you even need an ever-changing plan for an ever-changing world. Some problems that come into your office on a given day are insignificant. Some are medium. You have to triage. A good assistant has a capacity to understand, does this problem have to be dealt with in the next hour, the next 6 hours, the next day, the next week? So you have to triage them. So you have to, have a brain.
And from your perspective, are you okay with an assistant calling you back saying, what do you need? And then that assistant talking to the person and calling you back and saying, I got the answer for you. Or does it have to be the main person you're trying to reach calling you back?
Nope. I just want, I'm just after a result. By the way, when you represent these household name attorneys, these very, very powerful people, every one of them on a top 100 list of attorneys in America on every list imaginable. I'm just after a result. I just want to achieve a result. Is it nice to chat with them? Perhaps. And by the way, that's another feature of the top 1%. I would have lunch. Now, lunch was a bit more common, admittedly, in the era in which I grew up, although I still
Mhm.
think it's profoundly important. Lunch with the top group, I don't know, between 2 and 4 times a year. And here's what was interesting about it often 75%. Now, these are profoundly busy people. Content of the lunch would say, I didn't have an exact measurement tool. 75% or above of the conversation during the lunch had nothing whatsoever to do with work. Nothing. Now you'd say, really? What the hell did you talk about? Life, traffic, divorce, medicine, the news, God, life in general. And they were inquisitive folks.
Mhm.
They were inquisitive folks. And tremendously charming in their curiosity. You left almost all lunches with the top group saying, I fucking understand why this person's a superstar. I mean, come on. You watch Michael Jordan play once and you don't have a lot of questions. I mean,
Right.
come on, man. And it wasn't just men. I mean, there were women in the group as well. Maybe not as many mathematically, but there were plenty.
Right. And so if I'm hearing you, Michael, just going back for a second, you feel just as well taken care of if the assistant calls you back with an answer as if that, yeah.
In fact, I further felt very often, not always, but very often, my relationship with the gatekeeper was as important or perhaps more than the relationship with the top 1% attorney. Now, that is kind of, I'd like to encourage you and others to think about my relationship with the gatekeeper
Mm,
was maybe as important or more important. Isn't that something? Isn't that worth thinking about?
interesting.
Now, by the way, I want to show you a new present I got this Christmas. May I show it to you? This is fun. Now, you can't see this too well, Emma.
Yeah, I
It
see that.
says, "No woke." Not woke, not woke. This is a coffee mug somebody sent me. Isn't that fun? Not woke. Okay. So anyway, here's what I've noticed this mental disease of an militant unwillingness to face reality about the vital importance of responsiveness and caving into the decayed culture of our time is true with all people, but most powerfully true with our younger friends.
Right.
By younger, I mean in today's world, this is a bizarre definition because it's so out of 35 or younger is considered young today. Now, when I was working, 25 or younger was considered young, but the disease of unreality is prevalent throughout all of society today, but the most prevalent, the highest virulent stage 4 disease is our younger friends. They have convinced themselves through cultural appropriation, I guess, that nonsense is normal.
So I want to end it on this, Michael. So if everything you're saying is true, and we'll assume it to be true, I know it to be true, but
Brilliantly
we'll
true.
assume it to be true in case someone out there is.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, don't want people should feel free to question anything and act in their way. I'm reporting data. I'm an agent of reality. I'm telling you how it was. You don't like it? Have
I
it?
think what you're saying is common sense. I think people, including myself, I'm not going to exclude myself, have a certain perception about when it's right to hire different people. But putting that aside for a second, assuming all that to be true, wouldn't it also, do you think it's a stretch or impersonal to also have that person dealing with your personal calls, not just work calls?
Well, listen. That's a matter of style, and I think it's a valid and fair question. I must be open with you, and this is something perhaps I'm not proud of. Maybe I was guilty of a certain cultural standard in my day, right? At the height of my career, I had 3 assistants, okay? Now I had a main assistant and then 2 support assistants. Okay. 3 full-time assistants. Okay, fine. It's a lot. And when I was dialing calls out, right, during the day, my assistant, my top assistant, would dial my calls. The vernacular was running the call log. Okay. So somebody had called me. Now, remember, if I went into a meeting for an hour, I'd come back to my desk. Calls were much more prevalent. I would come back to my desk after being out of the office for an hour. I was in my conference room, and there could be 25 calls that had come in that hour. That's incredible today, not possible, but it was true. So I would take the 25 calls written on paper and we would run them. And that person would call someone back and they'd say, they'd get them on the phone because they weren't always available. And they would say, hello, Mr. Smith. I have Michael Levine calling for you. Can you please hold and put the call
Mm,
through. And you'd say, well, the hell? This sounds like the White House. What are you, nuts? It was the way it worked in that day. Now, I don't do that today. I don't have 3 assistants today. I don't have an assistant, and I return a lot of my calls myself. Now, you'd say, "But Michael, did you do that? Did you have an assistant call a girlfriend? Did you do that? A parent's, a parent's a parent of one of your staff who called you?" Yes. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not even saying
Right.
I'm proud of it. So they would call and they would say very politely, "Good morning. Good morning, Sarah. How are you? It's, Joe in Michael Levine's office. How are you today? How was your weekend? By the way, I have Michael on the phone for you. Please hold," and put it through. And that was considered normal. The person didn't think anything of receiving it that
Right.
way. And I didn't. And of course, it was done in part because it was the culture, but also part because it was the efficiency of it. We were running a
Right.
lot of calls. As you know better than anyone, at one point, I'm representing Michael Jackson, David Bowie, Prince, Barbara Streisand, Joan Rivers, George Carlin simultaneously. Now, think about that. How many calls when Michael Jackson was first accused of the molestation incident, utterly inappropriately, in my opinion, because it was just a money grab. How many calls would I be getting from media in any given day? Well, a lot. I had no alternative but to return high volume because I was militant about returning every call every day.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
I'm nuts,
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and challenge accepted.
And
Challenge
just a
accepted.
thought. Hey,
Yeah. No.
I am let me tell you how I would consider this conversation of value. If someone listening to it, you included, said, "I did not change my mind." I did not. However, you did indeed. Number one, you were clear. And number two, you did get me to think a second time, though I didn't change my mind. If you said those two things, you were clear and you got me to think a second time, I moved. Even if there's no reason, I'm just very touched by that. Very appreciative. Okay.
Well, we appreciate it, and talk to you next time.